Hey there, my fellow humans. Welcome again to Imago Spiritual Learning and Wellness. And I wanted to just wanted to share a bit about the path of the caterpillar, because the Imago is the image of the final stage of growth and development within an insect that undergoes metamorphosis. And I mentioned this in the first video, and so but it's really fascinating. I first came to discover, not discover, but to look more deeply into the whole process of metamorphosis of the caterpillar to the butterfly, because what spurred it on actually was an event that happened in 2009, and it was a painful event for me, as it was for my family, in March of 2009, where a beautiful human being, my cousin Janine, she ended her life, and she ended her own life, and her own, or at least this lifetime, this timeline. And so I had, in processing the pain, I asked questions to myself, and questions like, what is this act all about? This act of ending one's life. What is that about? Where does that come from? Because the urge within us is to live, and to have more life. That's why we mate, we procreate, we beget sons and daughters, and we create works of art, music, paintings, sculptures, and poems, and stories, and books, and dance, and just so many things that we do that are expressive of that creative urge within us for more life, and to enhance, not just for more life, but also more enhancement of life. And the arts certainly provide that, don't they? And Janine was a really creative, artistic soul, beautiful soul, generous heart, just a beautiful, beautiful human being. So it was really painful to deal with that, and in my processing, in my mourning, in my grief, I asked questions again. Where does this urge come from to end one's life, and what is that all about? And so I started reading about the act of, when one chooses to end one's life in this lifetime, and I came to one discovery that I made was that the urge to end one's life, I don't believe it's necessarily naturally occurring. The possibility obviously exists within us. That choice, that willful choice exists within us, and we even see this played out in nature, whether it's whales beaching themselves, or animals walking over the cliff, and perhaps following others in front of it. But that first in that line, it's really something. So we see this play out in nature, and obviously we see it play out in the lives of humans as well. And what I came to understand is that the urge to end one's life, I believe, and this is just my way of seeing it. I'm not saying this is what it is, but I do believe that it is our interpretation of an inner urge, an inner communication. I mean, when we think of it, when we come to the point, when anyone comes to the point of ending their own lives, usually follows a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and I do believe that that the act of ending one's life is really an interpretation where the original signal from within is simply, or the message from within, if you will, is simply this: I desire that life be different. I desire that life be better. I desire that this pain and this suffering come to an end. And sometimes if we filter that signal, that communication, solely through the pain, solely through the filter of our pain and our suffering, and if we so identify with the pain and suffering so that it is really inseparable from us, such that we see no way out, then we might choose to bring this life to an end. And I don't know that that's the original message. Again, I really do believe that the original message from within is I desire that life be different, that life be better, that this pain and suffering be over. I desire rest from this pain, from this suffering. And so aside from, identifying inseparably with that pain and suffering, where that becomes the lens through which we see life, through which we see our experiences, and the filter through which we interpret, come to understand messaging, whether from within or without. When that happens, and then we have, stacked on top of that, we also live in a modern society that has a fixation on death, destruction, violence, enmity. Not that that was my cousin's fixation. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying in general that because we live in a modern society where the mass consciousness is really heavily programmed through imaging, through messaging, but really heavily programmed, heavily conditioned toward the toward death and all of the things that can be associated with that. Again, violence, destruction, right? Which all actually are preludes, right, to the possibility of transformation. Old things must die in order for new things to be born. So, so I do believe that that the urge, that the desire for rest, for a better life, for a different quality of being and operating, I do believe that that message can get lost, and we misinterpret that signal, so that we come to the conclusion that ending our lives is really the only way out, the only way out of our pain and suffering. And so that then kind of, progressed into metaphors of death, dying, rebirth. And that's how I came to read a bit more in depth into the metamorphosis of the caterpillar, morphing into the butterfly. And man, it's so I'd like to share this with you. Some of you have heard, perhaps. Many of you already know this, so bear with me. But let me share. So caterpillar lives, we know, it just consumes, right? It eats leaves, foliage. Some are more ground dwellers, so they eat grass. Others will kind of find their way up trees and eat leaves, or bushes, whatever it may be. And so the caterpillar will consume, I had learned, up to 80,000 times its own body weight throughout its lifetime. Over 80,000 times its own body weight. And makes me wonder, actually, how many times over our own body weight we end up consuming in the span of a lifetime, on average, right? Because we always know that there are exceptions, and so, but in terms of statistics and what they might suggest, I'm really interested. I'll look into that. And obviously, again, it's not going to be the same for everyone, because we all consume more or less than others, right? So anyway, the caterpillar just consumes, and then at some point, it will find its way up a tree, or it will kind of find some place where it can envelop itself, encase itself within the chrysalis. And again, the chrysalis, this encasement, is made up of the materials from within the body of the caterpillar, those materials being enzymes, proteins. So, and then what happens within the chrysalis, and again, it varies, right? So there's no one definite, unchanging dynamic. This plays out differently in terms of the details, from caterpillar to caterpillar. But overall, when it encases itself within the caterpillar, within the chrysalis, what happens is really fascinating, because from within the body of the caterpillar are activated cells, and entomologists call these suicidal cells, and their function simply is to consume the body of the caterpillar. And they typically will, when they emerge from within the body of the caterpillar, again, this is all happening within the chrysalis, right? So unseen to all of us. They will begin to feed on the caterpillar, and which actually ensures their own survival, right? For whatever time that they actually have food to feed on. That is, that food being the body of the caterpillar. And the suicidal cells will kind of work as a frenetic mass, it's just like bzzz, and there's no real order to it, It's all about survival. That's what it's about, survival with these cells. And they will consume the body of the caterpillar until there's nothing left. And then they themselves will will perish because there's nothing more to feed on. And when the body of the caterpillar is completely broken down until there's remaining a soupy mix, there's a second set of cells activated from within the body of the caterpillar. And this second set of cells are known as the imaginal cells, the imaginal cells. Imaginal being derived from the word Imago, which is the template of transformation. That's the picture, the image, the template of the butterfly. That along with the first set of cells, the suicidal cells, and the second set of cells, the imaginal cells, this template, this picture, this image, this vision exists, if you will, exists within the body of the caterpillar. And so when the imaginal cells are activated, again, there's really nothing, not much remaining of the caterpillar at this point, nothing that it would even resemble a caterpillar. But when the imaginals are activated, their activity is different from the first set of cells. The activity of the imaginal cells is they're activated, released, and then they form clusters, groups. And so they don't really work together as one mass, as one bodily mass. However, there is a universal consciousness, if you will, at work here. Because when the imaginals form, group together into their own clusters, and there are a number of clusters, each cluster will form, will join together, merge, and form, create a different segment of the butterfly that is to emerge. So you have one cluster of imaginal cells that may form the head, another forms the rest of the body, another forms one quadrant of the wings, and another the legs, another the antenna. And when the clusters are done with their mission of forming the various parts of the butterfly, then they all merge, they all come together. And they come together and form the entirety of the body of the butterfly, what we come to know as the butterfly. Isn't that something? So they're not really organizing themselves into one great big mass, but into clusters. And each cluster is clear in what its work is to do, and how that is determined within that cluster. Man, there's enough here on this earth to occupy our minds forever and ever and ever in terms of the study of all of the knowledge and wisdom, the science and the spirit contained within what we call nature on this beautiful planet. And then imagine all the learning that we can accumulate and share, perhaps, and build upon in whatever way, I don't know, but contained in all of the universe. My mind loves entertaining these possibilities through imagination. And it helps me to formulate visions of what might be possible. So when the body of the butterfly is formed within the chrysalis, then what happens is it begins to eat its way through. And again, it's not the same for all butterflies, right? You know, there are variations in the details, but what happens is they begin to eat, the butterfly will eat its way through the chrysalis. And it will create a hole, an opening in the wall of the chrysalis that becomes its exit point. But hear this now. So when it emerges from the small little hole. It can, maybe its head and the upper portion of its body perhaps can fit through, maybe a leg or two. And it has to struggle and struggle and struggle to get the rest of its body out of the chrysalis. That's a vulnerable point there, because it's exposed to the elements and it's exposed to predators, right? And there are other points of vulnerability throughout the life of the butterfly as well later on. But at this point, when it's emerging from that hole, from that opening, it's really vulnerable. But it has to strain and struggle. Why? Because its wings are full of fluid. And that struggling and straining to exit through that small opening. So it's not a great big opening that is accommodating and says, yeah, come on through, come on out. It's not that easy. So think how this might apply, right, with us in terms of our endeavors and our goals and aims in life. But anyway, the struggle and the strain that it goes through in exiting through that small opening squeezes out the fluid from out of its wings. Isn't that something? So therefore, that struggle and strain become absolutely necessary, because that's the only way that possibly that it's going to fly. And once the wings are drained of their fluid by the butterfly continuously squeezing its way out and exiting out, struggling and straining to exit, then it exits fully, completely, intact. And it may spend a bit more time perhaps before taking off and completely drying its wings. And then it takes off and it flies, the butterfly, the Imago, within the caterpillar. And what I also learned is that nothing of the caterpillar is retained in the butterfly except two things. The respiratory system and the digestive system are the two things that survive the transformation, survive the metamorphosis. The two things that are retained, the two things that were in the caterpillar retained in the butterfly, the respiratory and digestive systems. And I made this association. I'm not saying this is true, but it works for me. It resonates with me. Respiratory system, respiration, to breathe. What is the Greek word for breath? Spiros. So that's where we get the word respire. Spire. Spiros. Respire, respiration, to breathe again and again. In, out, that repeating rhythm. That is life-sustaining. That is central, essential to our life as we know it in this humanity of ours. Also the word inspire, to breathe in breath. When we inspire others, it's very different than if we impress others. To impress, we leave a surface, a superficial mark on someone's mind. They're impressed, we impress someone, we're impressed by something. But it's not permanent. To impress others, and to leave an impression, it's not permanent, except in the mind, perhaps, that retains it. But to inspire, that will give birth to a lifetime of possibility where the one inspired can take that inspiration and do, we've read countless stories, right, of these kinds of instances where inspiration led someone to do or become something greater than whatever they thought they were in this world of achievement. So the respiratory system is retained in the butterfly. The respiratory system also represents, metaphorically, our ability to take in life experiences, take them in, whether it's good or bad, whether it's joyful or painful. If it's good, if we deem it good or joyful, we give thanks, right? We enjoy the blessing. If we deem it bad or painful, what is there left to do? Process, transform it, transform the pain through alchemy. And breathing, spirit, spiros, spirit. If we tap into and ground ourselves in spirituality, we will enhance our ability to practice alchemy so that even our negative experiences become windows of wisdom, giving us both insight and then clearer vision, a clearer perspective, respiration to respire, inspiration to inspire. The respiratory system is retained in the butterfly. Spirit and all of its attendant processes and possibilities are retained within the butterfly. And then the digestive system is meant to do what? To break down food so that we can assimilate the food, the nutrients in the food, assimilate them, the nutrients to feed the cells, systems, and organs of our bodies. Right? And metaphorically, the digestive system, food, right? We take in food. What does food represent metaphysically, metaphorically, in the world of metaphysics, spiritual metaphysics? Food represents knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. And our digestive system is representative of our ability to take in and integrate the knowledge, that which is can be factored into our growth, development, metamorphosis, transformation. So the two things that the butterfly retains from the caterpillar: spirit, spiros, respiration, respiratory system, and the digestive system, to digest and assimilate food, knowledge, assimilate knowledge. And when we assimilate the knowledge and can apply it to our actions, our behaviors, to our discernment, and we have wisdom. So spirit knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and the ability the innate ability to take in our experiences and to integrate them so that we are benefited thereby, and then we can be better informed, so that then we can serve others. Ultimately, right? That's the aim, to beget, and as well the digestive system to be able to assimilate what is nourishing in the knowledge that we take in, so that we can apply it again to our learning, our growth, our development, and ultimately our service to others. That's what it all aims for, to my mind. So just wanted to share that, in terms of this is how I came, into this, kind of looking a bit more in depth into it. Not, not, obviously I'm not an entomologist or anything like that. So, but anyway, but yeah, it's really fascinating, and it all stemmed from an event that was so painful. Still, and from that pain was begotten through an act of will, through an act of questioning, asking questions, and that question becoming a doorway to the possibility of discovery, which then creates, hopefully, births. It will give birth to other questions and other portals of discovery and possibility. So if we can take our pain and through the alchemy of spirit, learn how to process and transform that pain into something that ultimately proves to be beneficial to us, and in terms of what it has to offer to our learning, our growth, and our development, and ultimately our transformation. Man, we're alive. We're alive. So yeah, so back in 2009, a butterfly exited my life, and more centrally and more directly, the lives of my beautiful family back in the South Bronx. And through the alchemy of spirit, even the pain of that, still she's giving to me, and I know to others. So, and I take the thought of her and the memory of her and her beautiful heart, soul, spirit, and I carry that with me. And I take her pain and I accept it in the end of her lifeline, so that I could sit here with you right now and share a tiny bit of insight, tiny bit of understanding. You have your own that's far deeper. So go within, and consult with your spirit, consult with your Imago, begin to, with your imagination and through questioning, through searching, begin to formulate, if you haven't already, I'm not assuming, or continue to formulate, perhaps, a vision for yourself and for your life, so that you can pose the question, what am I? Which is more important than the question, who am I? And that's an important distinction to make, and we'll cover that at some time. Who am I versus what am I? So thank you for this time. Thank you for your patience, for your forbearance. Thank you for your grace in sitting through this. And I just pray that it proves to be a blessing of some kind to you, for us. All right. So blessings, one and all. Thank you again. And really looking forward to continuing this journey together, this undertaking, and what it ultimately will be. I don't know. I have a vision, but it's not mine alone. It's yours. Just like those imaginal cells in their clusters. Each had their own respective vision, but there was a greater vision guiding their efforts, and ultimately emerging as something beautiful and transformative. So, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Many blessings to you and to all that pertains to you.